Um, we'll begin at the beginning. So,
It's a
introduction.
very good place to start.
Yeah, right. Um, so, Lady Amaran, tell us about your craft and self.
I'm Amaran Nicole, and I am a jewelry designer, crystal energy practitioner, and soul coach um, at nature'slore.path.com. Um, so basically, I just like all fun things and, all weird things and supernatural things and talking about all those things. So,
And
yeah.
you are always ready to light someone's fire too.
I am.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, we gotta work on your elevator speech, friend. You are like dynamic transformational coach that isn't going to fluff it up. We're gonna get straight to the point, no bullshit.
Right. This is very true. This is very true. And I do need to work on that. I agree. Because your text of you, I need like a recording of you doing my elevator speech because you do it so well.
I'm gonna have to be Nature's Lore spokesperson. No, little peaches.
Right.
um,
I'm just not good at that. I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, all right. So, who are you, Madame Desiree?
so I'm Nicole Desiree, and I'm the founder of Valoria and the Free Trader Beowulf, where I teach metaphysical things. See, now I'm stumbling over myself. I'm a divination and healing professional and teacher and business coach. Um, that's just a snippet of what I do, and I'm in the process of kind of doing a little bit of rebranding at this point. So I'm in this big gray area, but I know that like really exciting announcements are to come for 2019. And I can't wait to talk about that. I'll talk about it with you privately, but I'll wait for the more public announcements of things. So
Hear that, people? I'm special. I get it first.
the insiders scoop. All right. So last week we discussed a little bit of our personal news. Has anything been capturing your interest in the last month that we've caught up really? I know you
Um,
mentioned Comic-Con, but I'm sure there's other things.
right. Well, the biggest thing was definitely Comic Con. That was, I just fucking love stuff like that. It's only been our second one for either me or my boyfriend. It's only our second one ever Comic Con. It's so much fun. I'm such a people watcher
Mm,
uh, that it's just like Comic Con is like the perfect combination to me for the geek in me and the people watcher in me, because the people watcher gets to see the geek in everybody else, you know? So it's like, I just love it. And of course I'm, artsy crafty, so getting to see what other people create and stuff too is really, really fun.
yeah, I could see that being like a really energizing experience for you because it combines a lot of the things that you're naturally drawn to, but just in this like super amplified way.
right, exactly. So, I ran into, yeah, I mean, it's just so fun. You walking down, you're looking at all these, crafts and amazing things that people are making, and then of course all the comic books and stuff that, people are making, and getting your shit signed by the, creators and all this kind of stuff. And then, oh, you just turn around and, oh, there's giant Krampus just standing right next to you, or poor Barb from Stranger
Oh,
Things, and I'm like, it's okay. And what we did actually go to the uh, cosplay contest at the end of the weekend
oh man.
this time, and so fun. But holy shit! Okay, one of the winners, and I'm so glad. Like, if this guy didn't win, it would be a travesty. One of the winners had made a xenomorph costume from Aliens, Alien from Aliens. Uh, unfucking believable. I mean, this thing was. unreal. Like, I seriously, like, you felt like you were just standing right next to it, like, for real. And of course, I mean, you just see this thing just walking down the hall with everybody. I'm like, it's a trippy experience when you see, you know, all these characters and everything just like walking down doing whatever, you know. It's like Halloween on fucking steroids. It's like, you know, I love it. So yes, that's been, you know, the biggest thing probably for the last month for me. So that was just super, super fun.
That's awesome.
What about you?
Um, I really haven't done much. Like I feel like I just like wake up and go to work and come home and eat dinner and go to sleep. I've just been wrapped up in trying to plan for the future, and I'm kind of keeping the cards close to the chest on that. I can't wait to tell you everything because it's 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 kind of like so much of what has happened in the last 5 years is starting to come full circle in a really really big way. So I'm excited about that. I just feel like everything right now is in service of these future opportunities. So not exciting. Been watching a lot of YouTube videos, like
Gotta love you too.
mostly just like product review type videos or trying things out. And I just don't have the attention span for a lot of stuff. But I did start rewatching Sherlock again because I love Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, he is awesome. Like, everything he does is amazing.
He's just so funny.
Well, and of course, you know, I first like really fell in love with him with Doctor Strange, because of course, hello, I'm a geek. But then also like I love Doctor Strange because like that really gets into the mystical things, the metaphysical things, and you know, so Doctor Strange and Iron Fist to me are like, you know, oh yeah, that's just science kind of shit. You know, it's like, you know, all this other stuff. Okay, that's out there. That's, you know, super, you know, aliens and, you know, whatever and this and that. I'm like, Doctor Strange. Oh yeah, it's just like, you know, creating a vortex or you know, energy ball, you know, whatever. Oh yeah, that's totally possible, you know. So I love that. So like, yeah, and then so that just like solidified his awesomeness in my opinion. So because he did, I mean, he did an amazing job with that character to me. So.
Oh, yeah. I'll just sorry, I'm just gonna just go off dreaming about.
Right. So while while Nicole daydreams about Benedict Cumberbatch, we will talk about some spirits here.
But speaking of the supernatural and strange, that brings us to our topic. So the last episode that we did was on what to do when a demon is in your house, and this is very closely related but different. We're going to be talking about spirits or ghosts, ghouls, you know, and talk about what that is, what we think that is, or how people have discussed them in general. And I know originally we wanted to record this one in the evening so that we'd be drinking the spirits as we were talking about spirits, but here it is morning time and I haven't been well, so
Yes, thanks to Mercury retrograde,
things, yeah,
you know,
out of whack.
we have had to change things all up, and because I am awesome, I do have spirit in my cup.
Yes.
But poor Nicole is not feeling well, so she is not drinking this morning.
I'm really bummed out about it too because I'm like always looking for reasons to drink mimosas. Like,
and for anybody that doesn't really know us, this is why we get along so well. We're like, oh, you sneeze. Oh, we need a glass of wine. You know, any reason whatsoever for.
It does help to smooth out the rough edges, and it naturally invites a little bit more humor and at least extrovertedness from me. So this should be fun. um, so this topic was a really natural progression, not only because like talking about demons is talking about spirits or things that are on like the other side of the veil of this reality, but we also released the last episode during Halloween. And then on Halloween, the Beliefful podcast released an episode totally devoted to ghosts and ghost stories as well. And they ended the podcast with a ghost story from me, like a real life experience that I had. So that was really interesting. And I'll probably drop a link so that people can check it out. It was really fun having me tell a story and then listening to it with all the sound effects and stuff. Like they did a really amazing job of like, like creaky doors opening in the background of a story, and I was like, this sounds real. So I'm not gonna go over that ghost story though. I'd rather talk about more of like the philosophical nature of like, okay, what does ghost mean exactly? So over the course of our conversation, we're probably going to talk a little bit about ghosts, what they are, how people experience them, possibly if we get there in terms of psychic abilities, of like what it means to have mediumship and channeling abilities, and what exactly are we tapping into. And then, of course, inevitably, we're going to be talking about just generally what life after death means and the relationship of like the body and soul. So, and then I wrote in my like show notes, and then at some point probably vibrators because it's just gonna happen.
Right. It's just gonna come up, sooner or later. No pun intended.
There was a story that popped up on my feed of like this woman tried to legally get married to a ghost.
What?
Yeah, yeah, they've been like happily together for multiple years and then decided to make it official, and I'm just like, well, it takes every color to make a rainbow. So
True. I mean, would you to, to make sure that you're being like legit there, and I'm totally getting off of like way out there. Would you have like your priest also be a medium so that they can see and or at least hear like the other party? I mean, because if you can only like perceive one half of the couple
right.
at the wedding, like can you legitimately marry them? So wouldn't you as the uh you know priest or whatever whoever's doing the marrying of the people yeah, wouldn't you like be required to like be able to verify that there is that second person there? Like,
No, I
I don't
feel
know.
like if the price was right, I will verify that entity for you.
And that's probably about right.
And
Yeah.
I'm just joking, of course. I mean,
Oh,
I would never take somebody's money under the circumstances of metaphysical work
of
unless it was
course.
like $10,000. So I'm just,
Yeah, unless it was above this, yeah, then I'd do anything, yeah. I have morals up to this point. Okay, but back on the real subject
back
here.
on the track. So because we're going to be talking about this idea that like there's a reality that we're experiencing that we can, um, in a way, verify through our physical senses. Whether it's sight or hearing or touching things, and that these ghostly experiences somehow go beyond explanation, that they become metaphysical. Metaphysical is where science ends and a lot of questions begin, but there's something there that's prodding these questions. So I was just going to introduce these four theological theories on what the relationship is between the body and soul. I think when we first started talking about this topic, I thought it was a really great question that you had, Amaran, about um, are ghosts just perceived as people who have passed on, or is there something more to it? Like, is it just essentially the souls of dead people, or is there something more? And then we'll get, of course, deeply into what your perspective is. Um, so I found this article on theologicalimpact.com, and I'll drop the link in the show notes. And what I really liked about this article, and it is kind of long, is that he does a really great job of kind of breaking down these deeply intellectual, philosophical ideas of what the relationship is between the body and the soul. And he broke it down into these four different parts. And I think that just breaking it down into four different parts or different ideas highlights like how many different beliefs we hold as humans. Like everyone kind of has their own idea of what life after death is. And all four of these theories are under the realm of Christianity. So it's not even like all Christians have decided like this is what happens after death. Like everybody kind of has their own perspective. But
Right.
I felt like these four ideas of the relationship between the body and the soul really does a good job encapsulating of what most people are going to fall under in terms of belief. So the first one that he introduces is called holistic dualism. That meaning when you're arriving, like when you're born into this world, your soul and your body are a part of the same thing. But when you die, the soul is kind of released from the body and has no use any longer of the body, and the body just decays and becomes dust, part of the earth. Um, and then the soul is separated from that body forever. Like there isn't any going back. This is a denial of reincarnation. So the next one that he goes into is monism, which does say that there's reincarnation, and furthermore that the reincarnation is instantaneous, so that the soul cannot survive without a body. So when the body dies, it's almost like it has to go find a new host, and it just instantly transports there.
I've seen some
The
awesome like TV episodes on that one. I mean, just like total side note here.
Yeah,
With the people believing that and like, oh, they've got to be around to like a newborn baby so that their soul can like when they die they're gonna
I'll jump in.
they'll have a host and all this So anyway, but
That's
some cool episodes. Anyway, go on.
and I mean that like reincarnation could be like a whole other topic altogether, because that's something that I know that I have a lot of questions about, where there's certain aspects of it that totally make sense, and then there's certain aspects of it where I'm just like, huh?
Right.
Um, so then the third theory that he introduced was non-reductive physicalism, which I think is interesting. This idea comes greater into play in Christianity in the later books of the New Testament, like in Revelation, where it's like the soul and the body are in a way inactive, and then at the time of the rapture, and the rapture is like when Jesus comes back to earth to resurrect the Christians, they wake back up and reunite, so that they can't sleep, they can't consciously exist without each other. So when the body dies, the soul goes to sleep. So there's like a soul inactivity, which is interesting because in our conversation about ghosts, it's like, well, what are these ghosts then if these souls are asleep? Which then you would have to answer to. um, and then the fourth one is emergentism, which is more of a 20th, 21st century idea of body soul relationship. Is that the brain in some way manifests the soul, and that a lot of people, a lot of religions in general, do associate that in some way the soul arrives through the brain, because that's where we have our consciousness, that the soul is most active in our brains. But even though it arrives in the brain, it can live outside of the body. So that it's birthed from the body, but then can live beyond it, which is a really interesting way of talking about it.
Interesting one, yeah.
Yeah. So in these four different cases, you can argue for or against ghosts in terms of ghosts being people who have died, which I think is really interesting. Um, Getting on to a more entertaining topic, though. I know it's like philosophy, and I'm like, yay! But I know
I
not.
know. Well, I know. I love it too, but I know everybody's probably like, all right, move on. Come on, let's get to the juicy stuff. Like, but this
Stuff.
is important foundational material, people. Listen up. All right.
Right. Yeah. It just I like the variety of the things of like there's still a question mark at the end, I think, of every single one of those. Like,
Right.
well, how exactly is the soul existing and what does that mean in terms of the other side of the reality that we experience? But to get like more to a point, because we are entering the holiday season, at least, in the time of this recording, or we're in the middle of the holiday season because Halloween's already passed. I do love that these ghostly stories continue through the holiday season, and that there are just as many ghost stories surrounding Christmas time as Halloween time, which is really strange, like really weird. Christmas is supposed to be this time of joy, but one of the most famous Christmas stories is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And when was it written? It was written in the late or mid 1800s. I don't know. I'll have to look that up, and I'll have to fact check myself and put it in the notes. I'm surprised they don't have a yeah, but I'm gonna say it's probably like late 1800s. So the story's been around for over 100 years, and it's one that has been told over and over. Some people have it memorized. It's been depicted in Hollywood, and it's like, well, why? Why are we so fascinated by this story? And I think it's because a lot of us have these universal experiences of either reckoning with time or having a ghostly encounter. If you don't mind, I'm going to read this passage of when the main character Scrooge meets a ghost for the first time of someone who has died, that was very dominant in his life previously. So I know now I just
Sorry.
added all the sound effects to go with this. Like really good editing.
All right, I can do my own sound effects.
Do you have some chains ready?
Oh shit! I forgot the chains. You go up to the bedroom and grab
I
the
was,
chains.
I was just going to say, you just have to go to the bedroom.
I'll get the vibrator while I'm at it.
And there it is. Alright, so this is the story of Marley's ghost. If you haven't heard A Christmas Carol, you guys should look it up. It's in the public domain. So the book is available everywhere, and it's on all kinds of streaming stuff if you want to watch one of the movies. So, Marley's ghost. Same face, the very same. Marley in his pigtail, usual waistcoat, tights and boots, the tassels on the latter bristling, like his pigtail, and his coat skirts, and the hair upon his head. The chain he drew was clasped about his middle. It was long and wound about him like a tail, and it was made, for Scrooge observed it closely, of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, observing him and looking through his waistcoat, could see the two buttons on his coat behind. Scrooge had often heard it said that Marley had no bowels, but he had never believed it until now. Nor did he believe it even now. Though he looked the phantom through and through, and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its cold of though he felt the chilling influence of its death cold eyes, and marked the very texture of the folded kerchief bound about its head and chin, which wrapper he had not observed before. He was still incredulous and fought against his senses. "Here now," said Scrooge, caustic and cold as ever. "What do you want with me?" "Much." Marley's voice. "No doubt about it." "Who are you?" "Ask me who I was." "Who were you, then?" Scrooge said, raising his voice. "You're particular for a shade." He was going to say "to a shade," but substituted this as more appropriate. "In life I was your partner, Jacob Marley." "Can you sit down?" asked Scrooge, looking doubtfully at him. "I can." "Do it, then." Scrooge asked the question because he didn't know whether a ghost so transparent might find himself in a condition to take a chair, and felt that in the event of it being impossible, it might involve the necessity of an embarrassing explanation. But the ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace, as if he were quite used to it. "You don't believe in me," observed the ghost. "I don't." "What evidence would you have of my reality beyond that of your senses?" "I don't know," said Scrooge. "Why do you doubt your senses?" "Because," said Scrooge, "a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheat. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's there's more of gravy than of the grave about you, whatever you are." Scrooge was not in the habit of cracking jokes, nor did he feel, in his heart, by any means waggish. The truth is that he tried to be smart, as a means of distracting his own attention and keeping down his terror, for the spectre's voice disturbed the very marrow in his bones.
Dun dun dun.
And so the reason why I wanted to bring that up is that it really does kind of harp on some patterns that come about in a lot of ghost stories, ghost encounters, where there is this kind of familiar specter, something that's not human. Because in the passage, he refers to the ghost as it rather than he, um, yet observing that it was taking the shape of a human familiar to him. Um, so it's like you see this thing that you can't really explain that looks familiar but is obviously not real. And then very, very quickly, he, even though is filled with terror, his mind is racing to explain what the thing is and that he must be imagining it, that it can't possibly be real. But the fear inside of him is. And I think that's really what happens when many of us encounter ghosts or ghostly things for the first time, that there's something there we can't put our fingers on, but it is inciting terror. And not always, but it seems like that does seem to be a reoccurring theme. So, given everything that I've kind of brought up, and I brought up like a bajillion different things in regards to this topic, but it's like let's start at kind of a baseline of what what do you know or feel happens at the moment of death, or anywhere you want to get started. I know I threw a boatload of questions at you, like none of them easy, but if you could just give us the single line answers to each of them.
Well, as we discussed in the last episode, I know everything, I am perfect, blah, blah, blah. So, of course, I have the answer, okay.
The ultimate answer to everything. It's 42.
Right? Duh, everybody knows that, right?
Thank you for laughing.
But no, for real, let's just like toss in here before we really get too far in that, I think we both agree that neither of us has like, all the answers, or, this is my opinion, this is your opinion, this is, my belief, your belief, whatever. I'm not saying that, despite the fact that I did literally just say it, I'm not saying that I'm always right.
Well, I would furthermore too, because like even though we're both coming from opposite sides of the table, and we're doing so peacefully, we're not coming to the table cemented in anything, right? Like
Right.
you didn't just wake up believing the things. Like the things that you are about to explain to us have been through years of your personal experience finding yourself in your beliefs and being exposed to a lot of different ideas under the realm of Christianity against non-religion and world religions alike, right? Like you're not coming out of this from a vacuum, and that you know
Right.
that you still have decades of life ahead of you to observe and learn even more, and who knows when, you know, you might have minute shifts along the way.
Right.
We're,
Right. And I
we're
think,
asking now what you're what you're
right.
thinking.
But I think that this is an important, point to make, though, for us, and it's, not just for this video, but, for all, past and moving forward. That, I think, again, we're both kind of the type, like, I am totally okay admitting when I'm wrong, if I've changed my mind, if, whatever. I think you are too. So yeah, again, I think it's good to just point out that, yeah, we don't have all the answers. Um, Not actually always right. Oh, man, that one was hard.
Ready for you to step down from that mountain.
No. It's so pretty up here. uh, no, but it just, yeah, this is kind of like where we are now, and based on our years, because both of us have been doing this, our own personal journeys and looking into these things in various forms and ways for decades now. And yeah, we'll continue to do so, assuming that we have decades more to live. So yeah, we'll, life is ever growing, ever changing, and our understanding of it is, or should be, too. So anyway, so on that note, I'm right, and what I say goes. So let's get to it. Okay, so to your question, what happens at the moment of death?
Well, do you want me to just throw all the questions and then you can navigate through them, or do you want me to go through my questions one by one? Because I think I have like 3 or 4 questions.
However you want to do it, it's fine. It's probably all going to be the same answer anyway.
They're all pretty interconnected. So it's like my biggest question really is like, so from your perspective, it's like, what is death, or after we die, what happens to the soul? Like for me specifically, it's just like finding this place of, if we have a soul that survives the body, where does it go? Does it like beam up directly to heaven? Does it linger around? You know what I mean?
Right. No, no, I totally get it, because that has been like a haunting question for me for so long too.
And then it's like I have these smaller questions of, like if there's a soul that's, lingering around, whether it's in heaven or it's like down here, can the human souls influence things in our reality? And we can get into like specifics of what I'm talking about there. But it's like people, like I have had ghostly encounters, and there's a lot of people who have had ghostly encounters that share their stories, whether it's like famous haunted buildings, or someone seeing like their child that died just appear in front of them. Um, oh yeah, that's exactly what I said. It was like, so, and not all ghost experiences are bad experiences. So I'm just trying to reconcile, like, what do we mean? Like, what does it mean for you, life after death?
Right. Well, I think I'll just kind of jump to the last one first, a little bit, and just toss out there that, this is a very complicated topic.
Right, right. And we're not
And
even going to begin to really uncover everything.
right. But I will toss in that, among other things that we will discuss here today, to keep in mind that the human brain in and of itself is insanely complicated and complex and just, so I do think that the possibility is pretty high that at least to some degree, some amount of ghostly encounters, visions, blah blah blah, are our own minds.
Mm-hmm.
And especially I could see in cases of, you've lost a child, or somebody that you're very close to or something, to your brain can create these things, to a point. So it's not necessarily that it would have to be that actual person's soul or whatever there, but your brain, you are experiencing that, yes, but it's in your head. And I'm not saying that you're crazy or anything because it's in your head, but just
No,
that it's your brain has created that because you may need that experience, that interaction or whatever. And
and there's actually psychological evidence for stuff
right,
like that. I've what people might not know watching this video is I got really heavily into morning studies towards the end of my college career, and the thing that you are talking about, Sigmund Freud talks about a lot, because he talks extendingly about dreams and then also about grief, and that this affected reality helps us to reprogram our brains to like align to our like we always have a story about ourselves running in our head, and
right,
when somebody really important to us dies or we lose something like a house or a business burns down or something, our brain is like seeking
right.
to,
And I think because there's so much, we've got the conscious, the unconscious, and subconscious,
yeah,
and there's so much, like, we just got the conscious here, but there's so much more, under the, and, so and another, I think, a great topic for us to discuss at some point would be dreams, because that's a big thing for me, is dreams, because I think they're very significant.
we should definitely
And it's kind of the same concept as your subconscious, going, like, it knows what you need and it's trying to communicate with you. And there's other things about dreams too, but I'm just, that's part of, again, one facet of dreams. So it's, yeah, the same kind of concept is like, it knows like you need this interaction or, whatever to help help you cope or move on, just whatever, so that's definitely, I think, one facet of the crystal ball of, the what a ghostly encounter could be.
I think that's a really good place to start too, of like, well, maybe some of this is actually grounded in a reality via hallucination.
Right,
That
right.
it's
And
not
again, I'm not
supernatural,
calling
it's
anybody crazy, but it happens. I mean, it's, yeah, it's just one of the things. The brain is so amazingly fascinating, but it can do so many things that we don't fully realize, So, okay, so then back to just more the general. Okay, so what do I believe happens at the moment of death, and then, yeah, where does the soul go, essentially?
yeah.
I think neither one of us disagrees in the fact that we have a soul. Every person has a soul, and uh, you know, so for me, again, this has been a very long journey for me. because I've always been super fascinated with the supernatural, like I said, and ghosts and stuff, especially because it's always been one of those like seemingly unattainable answers. Like, can you ever really have a solid answer for that? And so for me, I've gone in all different directions throughout my life of what I think might be this, and that, and the other. But where I am now, and I'm pretty confident that this is pretty solid, is that when we die, the body itself is dead. It's going to go into the ground. It's going to decay. It is going to waste away. It is no more. Will not be used again. Done. Kaput. That's it. The soul, however, is something that that it does leave the body. There is no consciousness in the grave. A lot of Christians especially go, the body sleeps when you die. You sleep when you die, and then you will be resurrected, and you wake up and all this kind of stuff. The body is dead. I mean, that's it. You're not gonna like get up at the resurrection in your same body. If you're dead at that point, if you've been in the grave at that point, you're getting a whole new set of
Because if you're an ancient human, you're like pulverized to dust at this point.
Right. You're not gonna like get up with this same body. I mean that's, again, people, that's science. That's like, we see the body is decayed in the ground. And if you're like one of the first people, then like, you're not even just bones anymore. You're like you're gone. So with the idea of the resurrection, when Christ comes back and all this, you get, and it's clearly stated biblically too, you get a new body. You don't get the same old crappy shit that you had here. It's because that's gone and dead, and that's gone. So you get a new body. So I'm sorry, you were saying.
Oh, no, just so with this idea of getting a new body, would that relate to reincarnation, or is this something entirely different?
This would be something entirely different, because reincarnation is, to my understanding of reincarnation, means that you get a new earthly body. You don't. Now, I guess now some might actually go that you could reincarnate as a person, an animal, an angel, an alien, whatever. I mean, there's definitely that, I guess. But I think in general, it's assumed that when you reincarnate as an earthly being of some point, of whether it's an animal or a person. The point of the resurrection is that you get a new body, because death can't live in life. So the human body as it is now is essentially considered death, because it dies. It cannot sustain immortality. So when you're resurrected, in the last days when Christ comes, you resurrected, you get a new immortal body, basically. So, I don't know if it's going to look exactly the same, or if it's going to be like totally different, or all that ethereal, oh, it glows kind of thing. I don't know what it's going to be. I just know that again, scripturally, it clearly states that you will be given a new body that can that will last. So it's not the same. I mean, we could go like totally off the rails and just go, oh yeah, you'll look exactly the same. It's your same exact body, but it's gonna be like Edward from Twilight. He's gonna sparkle and be all like indestructible and shit. And it's like, I don't know, you know. Anyway, uh, so
I was having
um,
people thought of like, so when we've been envisioning these green Martians, it's actually going to be the perfected human of the future.
right, totally. Like, no, see, I don't know what that's gonna look like. I just know that from the biblical standpoint, you know, it's it's a new body. When you die, your body, your physical human body dies. It is no more. Will not, it's gonna be gone. Um,
So then, so then what happens? So then this is the soul to you asleep, or does it go somewhere?
so
And
what I
going is
what I believe. Wait, again.
I was going to say, and going is a loose term because
Right.
we already touched on last time that you and I believe that this idea of heaven is not the up and out. There's like some kind of an across thing that's
Right.
happening, which is
Right.
explained.
Now there are, again, and not to get too off topic, there are, biblically speaking, heavens and, or, but heaven as we are talking as in like, where God is and, the angels and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's more of a over and out, not a up above the clouds, kind of thing. That is also considered heavens, in a sense, but not in the sense that we're talking about. Anyway, so you die, the breath of life ceases. The soul is gone from the body at that point. The it. I believe that it goes back to the creator. It goes back to God essentially, but not so much in the conscious sense of like, oh, we're all up in heaven partying until, I believe that when you die, consciousness ends, and the next moment of your consciousness. So what you basically, like sleep, which I think is why that term is used so much in the Bible when talking about death, sleeping, is because it's like sleeping. It's like when you go to sleep, your next conscious moment, now not subconscious and blah blah blah, but your next conscious moment is like this, right?
Mm.
So my understanding of it is that death is essentially the same thing. It's like when you die, your consciousness leaves your body, and in your next conscious moment could be, a million years from now, but it is the resurrection.
So,
So
so the moment between like that and then the waking of consciousness, do you think it functions like wandering in a dream-like subconscious state, or is it just absent entirely? Because I mean, when we sleep, minds are still active, right? Like we're engaging with
right,
dreams if we're healthy. Like dreaming is part of the healthy.
right. So, but that's where I think it differs from death, is because I think, yes, in sleep, the mind is still active. We're not consciously awake, but, the body is still functioning, and everything. But I think that there's a difference between the mind, because the mind is part of the physical body. The soul isn't. The soul is there in the physical body, but it is not a part of the physical. It can, again, it can be separated. Basically, it's not. I believe that at conception there is a body forming, and at a certain point of that process, the soul enters the body. I don't. I personally don't think, and I'm. This is my beliefs. of what I have come across and researched over the years. Yeah, so I don't believe it's instantaneous. I
I
think
don't
that it's
believe it's possible for it to be instantaneous
right.
because that would mean every single miscarriage, of which most miscarriages are unconscious to the person experiencing them because it happens so early on in the pregnancy cycle. Of like,
Yeah.
are there really that many souls being? I don't know. I mean, it's not that it's
Well,
impossible,
and
it's like
just
functional.
yeah, for it's probably too much to get into today, but yeah, that's what I was. So at some point after conception, as the body is growing, uh, the soul will enter the body and essentially life at that point. Um, and but the brain is already in there. It's already, growing and developing and everything. I think the soul adds a lot to the brain, but the brain is part of the physical body. So when the body dies, the brain dies, kind of thing. Brain dies, the body dies. You can't separate those two. You can separate the body and the soul. So yeah, while we're sleeping, the body is still alive, and the brain is still functioning. So we get the dreams and all that, coming through, the subconscious and all this. But at death, the body's dead, so the brain is no longer functioning.
So you'd
So
say we wouldn't have reason.
right, there's no dreaming, there's no anything like that. It's like all that is done. The only thing that's left at that point is the soul. Um, so this is where, to me, that's pretty much like solid, all that. But this is where it kind of gets into the I'm still figuring this out kind of thing. Is what exactly does happen to the soul? Like where, okay, let's say, okay, it goes back to it goes back to God, it goes back to the Creator. So does that mean, because I don't believe that it's just like, sitting up in heaven on a cloud having a smoke, for, until, the resurrection.
So a lot of that
So
would
I,
make sense.
uh,
So that I feel like that really doesn't make a lot of sense. I know it's something that a lot
right,
of people talk about, like when a loved one dies, it's just like, oh well, he's with Jesus now, laughing with all the whatever.
right. It's a very comforting
Yeah,
thought to,
it's
to
really
think that, oh, your loved one is up having a blast right now and, oh, watching over me and all this kind of stuff. I don't believe that at all.
there's just something
So,
strange about it.
right, it just, to me, it's like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Um, uh, on a logical standpoint and also on a biblical standpoint. So I don't know in what sense, in what way, our soul goes back to God. But so there's that, and there's also, I think, well, it could in a sense be sleeping as well. So I think that, again, all right, maybe it goes back to God and is sleeping. And then, until the resurrection, and then it waits and is given, the immortal body, to live in eternity. So that's not to say, because I will, and I'm horrible with names and, scripture passages and all this. Is why I don't usually quote things, because I can't get that shit right. But the story of the king that went to the medium to call on the prophet, who was dead. So we went to the medium, which was totally against, what they were supposed to do. But he wanted some advice. So he goes to the medium, tricks her into calling on the dead prophet to give him advice on what he was supposed to do. And the prophet shows up, in the spiritual form. So, I do believe that literally happened, but so I think that's like, it kind of goes to like just a totally God thing. It's like, he's like, all right, dude, sorry, like you gotta wake up real quick, but if you read the story, he comes back and he is like fucking pissed. He's like, dude, what the hell? You're bothering me? Like, come on, kind of thing. So I do think that there is, God can do anything. So why couldn't he, go, all right, this idiot, all right, I'm gonna get you up real quick and, put your soul back in, whatever. And so, again, that to me, because I just, I see a lot of people going, what about this story? So that to me is just totally a God thing. That's not like a metaphysical or a, just, oh, well, he was just floating around in, space anyway, So that's my opinion on that. But yeah, I don't, grandma is not up there looking out for you and, making sure you don't walk into the street and get hit by that car. Just no. So I don't know. My thinking at this moment is that the soul also goes into a kind of sleep, and until the resurrection.
Well, then I have. So is it not until the resurrection that people are kind of sorted into heaven and hell? Because doesn't the Bible talk about like there are different places to go?
Correct.
At what moment after death do you have consciousness that God is even there? And then that there is a possibility of going somewhere you don't want to be.
Right. That would be at the resurrection. And in scripture, it actually does actually break all this down. And, there's different, like levels, basically. Like at first, these people will be resurrected, then these people, and then, and all this. So there are different, different times for different things, basically. So it's yeah, all of God's people will be resurrected at this point, which is not pre-tribulation, FYI, people. We're gonna be going through that shit. Yeah, the biblical resurrection is not until the end of all that crazy shit. So, but yes, so he resurrects his people, he resurrects the other people, and yeah, and again, it's for everybody that's, yeah, so you're not like dangling in purgatory, conscious of like, all right, shit, where am I going, kind of thing. You don't, die and head up to pearly gate and, tell whoever's standing there, it's like, no, I'm really on the list, I really am, no. So as funny as that is to see in TV and movies, that's not reality.
But I'm sure you're like in the back of your head of like, but if there is a list, I'm on it.
Like, I'm sorry, I just assumed that everybody knew that, so I didn't even need to say it. So like, no. But yeah, so but everybody that dies, whether it's been at the dawn of time or, right before the rapture happens, the resurrection and all that. Wherever you're going for eternity, you're dead, you died, your body is decaying, you have no consciousness. Your next moment is the resurrection, and that's where you're gonna, either be tossed in the lake of fire or, get to spend eternity with God. So, as a side note, hell technically is not the end, the lake of fire, all that. Hell is the grave. Hell will actually be thrown into the lake of fire at the end with Satan and all them. Side note. So just, I love this stuff. So yeah, as far as like, okay, let's say we have, a ghostly encounter. Now personally, I have never had any ghostly encounters. I have had actually a good friend of mine when we first met, which is a strange way to meet, let me tell you. When we first met, we were working at the same department store, and in locations that were right next to each other, so we could hey, talk to each other and stuff when it's slow. So we get to talking this first time, and she starts telling me about my that somebody was hanging around with me, and she starts describing this person, and
straight out the gate,
like straight out the gate, yeah. So I'm like, and it was like, I mean, we had already gotten to the point where like, I'm open to these things and all, so it wasn't like just a completely random statement. But yeah, so she's telling me this, and she is describing in perfect detail things about my grandmother who had passed years ago, and telling me things about my relationship with my grandmother that I wouldn't say that no one but the two of us would know, but no one outside of maybe 2 or 3 people outside of, very close, like probably like maybe my parents and an aunt or something like that, like nobody else would really know these things,
So, to kind of just clarify for everybody who would be watching, this woman had mediumship abilities.
Right.
And it seemed like she was channeling information from your grandmother who had died before you guys met, and that it was confirming information that this information was really about your grandma because they were intimate, maybe not totally private, but intimate details.
Right. And I mean, she saw, and yeah, got all this information, everything. And, basically that she's just, kind of hanging around. She's, because me and my grandmother were very close. And even though she died when I was young, we were very, very close. And so, yeah, so that was just like what the hell moment, but that, on top of my already vivid fascination with, all these things, was just like, all right, now I really got to figure this shit out. So what I have come to believe spirits are, basically like if you see a ghost. Now, there is, like I said, there's multiple things. There's, the brain can just create these things because you need to, to see it or whatever. There, we could get into the whole thing about dimensions and the, you're maybe seeing a fragment of something that has happened in a different dimension, or something, and time is not linear. We think of time as like it's not, people, it's not. So, it could be that, again, we're getting a glimpse of, especially when you go to like a ghost house or something and you see the same, the person reenacting the same thing just over and over and over again. We've all heard those stories. Maybe that is, something where, the not the veil of the dead, but like the veil of time or dimension is thin, and you see this, you could, times on linear, you could, be experiencing the same thing over and over again.
Really
and that's another great topic is deja vu. We should definitely talk about that sometime.
Yeah, I have a lot of stories about deja vu though, for real.
Right.
It's definitely something that happens, but that's a really interesting perspective. I've not heard, or I've not heard, and I've certainly not thought of proposing that mediumship abilities might not be a direct communication with a spiritual being, but perhaps an ability to access information by tapping into different dimensions and timelines. Because that's a really interesting, like, you aren't a communicator, you're like a time jumper.
Right. And I mean, it's I'm not saying that, that's it or whatever. To me, that's a logical possibility.
That is a very logical possibility, I think,
Right.
because it's already been scientifically proven that time is not linear. We're just experiencing it consciously in a linear fashion.
Right.
And it actually does relate to some of my deja vu stuff too, of like I've seen stuff in dreams in the past and then relived them multiple times. Like it's very
Right.
weird when it happens, and like in ghost encounters, people tend to describe these things in similar ways, or like have identifiable hallmarks of like this is the thing.
Right.
That that is interesting. That a lot of these ghostly encounters for you, for the most part, in one way or another, is an an interaction with your own brain that you might not be consciously aware is really happening as part of your makeup, like not an external influence or stimulus.
Right. Right. And so yeah, so there's, to me, there's, all those possibilities. But and none of these are mutually exclusive either. Let me toss that out there. Like, I'm not saying that it could only be like one or the, I think that, any of these could be happening, to any degree to anybody, but to get to the spooky part of, the ghost stories, right? Like, I know everybody's waiting for like, oh, come on now. Yeah. Like, I don't want the fucking science, man. I want ghost stories, So I think another possibility, because like I've stated already, it's, your grandma is not really there, coming down from heaven to like, oh, come say hi, and everything, So I think that, and this, goes back to our last episode's discussion on demons.
Yeah.
Is,
I was wondering when you were going to sneak that one in.
Right, right. Because that's what I believe possibly the majority of a ghostly encounter, or what we perceive as a ghostly encounter, or meeting up with, someone's like, it could, in all intents and purposes, seem to be my grandma. Look exactly like her, sound exactly like her, know everything that we know. But now demons do not have the ability to know thoughts. Like, God can know your thoughts. Satan, demons, all that, they can't, they, can only know what is outward, essentially. But all these things were things that were expressed between me and my grandmother. Uh, in this example, in this instance. So, the fact that we both had a crazy passion for Elvis and things like that. And it's like, it's not stuff that was like only in my brain, only in my, Um, so, and biblically, you know, it's it is in scripture that demons can take on form. They can present as just about anything. Probably. So they can pop up and try and make you believe that you're seeing your grandmother, and that and with information that you would assume, only grandma and me and maybe one or two other people would know, kind of thing, you know. So I I think that is probably now, and that doesn't, just because it's a demon doesn't mean it has to be a horrifying, horrible experience.
Yeah.
It because they're there to deceive. So yeah, sometimes it works as just to try and terrify you, but let's face it, one of the best ways to deceive somebody is to make them comfortable, to make them happy, and to get them on your side. And the best way to do that is not through fear, but through familiarity with something comfortable and, happy, good, whatever, Uh, so then that could open up this whole bigger picture of, the trying to, Satan's agenda of, trying to pull people away from God. And, okay, well, if you can believe in all these things, and it's, it might not seem as like a big issue, in the grand scheme of life and death and afterlife and going to heaven or going to hell, of whether what you believe ghosts are, but when you tack on, like, okay, I believe, I can believe that, yeah, grandma and grandpa and everybody's just floating around willy-nilly, doing whatever, until whenever, well then, hey, probably get you to believe, um, evolution. The earth is flat. Maybe now, I could get you to believe that, you aren't worth anything, or, you can't accomplish anything, or, and so it compounds then. And, it's that fucking, snowball or whatever. It's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger as it tumbles down. It started as a little pebble, and at the end, you're, so far off point that, it's, so, I think that is ultimately a goal in that. And yeah, it doesn't have to be presented in these horrifying experiences, which there are, I'm sure plenty of those, too. But I think even if it's a good experience, good ghostly experience, that doesn't mean that it has to be a good entity that is presenting it.
And I think that's an important kind of distinction to make, because some of the arguments that I have heard about these ghostly encounters with things, whether they're demons or something else, is that one of the universal experiences of having a ghostly encounter, for the most part, not all of them, but for the most part, there is that feeling not just of fear, but of absolute terror because of it being of the unknown, much like from the passage of A Christmas Carol when Scrooge sees Marley, that he felt this terror in the marrow of his bones, that most people feel this thing inside of them. And like when I had my ghost encounter, it's the first time in my life that I've ever had goosebumps like
Oh, wow.
not being cold. This was like not in the winter time and I'm cold or like sick or anything, that I just had goosebumps from fear. Like the little hairs on the back of my neck kind of like rose up. And that's something that you hear people say about like little hairs on their body raising on end, and you just have this feeling of dread that you just know that it's something to be afraid of. To kind of like point back to the Bleep Hole podcast, not the one that I'm in, but they did a whole series on this, encountering things from the other side, um, things that just don't seem natural. Because the whole podcast is really about supernatural stuff and conspiracy theories. But they did one specifically about werewolves. You would really like this, and
I'm sure I would.
they were able to get some like archival tape from, I think it was like the 60s or 70s, and it was a story of this guy encountering, and he didn't say werewolf, but he was like this thing. It looked kind of like a dog, and it was very clearly like 7 to 9 feet tall. That was like larger than his car and stuff. And the way he described seeing it was he could not help but look. Like he didn't want to look because he knew that the peering into the darkness was only going to perpetuate the darkness. Um, but what I'm getting to is that we have this, we're compelled, like when we're in the thick of it, like we're compelled to interact with it or to look at it, even though kind of deep down we know we're not supposed to, if that makes sense. But it kind of creates fear, and then the more we look into it, the more afraid we tend to get, and that the more afraid we get, the more intense the thing is, and the more intense it is, the more we want to look at it, almost like the moth to the flame, like this obsession.
Right.
So a lot of these, I don't know, supernatural theorists believe or propose that the reasoning for this, feeling compelled, is that the thing, whatever the thing is, feeds off of fear, that somehow the energy of fear is food for this whatever. Is is there a kind of power suck between demons and humans where they would want to instigate these encounters?
Like for that, like I don't know. I don't have anything to back up anything either way as far as like a solid thing. I can say what I think on that. Being an energy practitioner is, everything is energy. The world is energy. Everything is energy. So I believe that then the demons, the angels, everything is energy. And if we just look at uh, a narcissist or an energetic vampire, as some people might be familiar with that term, um, you know, they, it's not like the vampire, oh, let me suck your blood, and they bite your neck and all this and literally suck out of you, but, the energy vampire, narcissists and all these kind of people do, in a sense, in a scientific and metaphysical sense, do literally feed off of your energy, take it, and that, sustains them, you know. So as far as like on a spiritual level, do demons need the fear to exist, or do they, is that something that, like, because I know there are a lot of movies out there, so, oh, don't give in to the fear and it'll go away, and that's what, it can't survive without that fear kind of thing.
Right.
That was I actually just saw that for the first time not long ago. But that was one that kind of, its life force seemed to be directly related to the fear that you gave it.
Right.
So I don't think that that's it. I think that the demons are there, regardless of whether we're going to be afraid of them or not. Um, back to my favorite quote from Constantine, but I don't see any reason why, I mean, at least right now, I don't see any reason why the fear wouldn't, at the minimum, encourage, uh, you know, a demon to continue on. I think, again, if we go back to, okay, well, what would you do about that then? It's like, just try not to be afraid. Well, okay, you could pray, and there are action steps you could take, but yeah, to try and and I'm a big proponent of face the shit, call it out, and whatever it is, whether we're talking about, fear, supernatural, demons, or, the fact that, you're angry at your neighbor for, leaving his trash on the, or, whatever it is, face it and name it. That takes away so much power, whether it's something sentient or not, whether it's a demon or fucking trash, it takes away so much of the power that it can have over you. Then then you can take those action steps of, all right, motherfucker, you're coming in here trying to scare me, all this shit, and so I'm gonna call you out as what you are, and say, and it's not to say that it might not be terrifying, but just acknowledging that takes away some of that power, and then you can go back to, okay, well, now now we're gonna pray, and ask for some, heavenly help, and whatever. So there's that part of the, how you might could address it. But yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why. I mean, because to me that just goes back to kind of more of a scientific explanation of, yeah, that kind of makes sense. If this asshole, misogynistic, whatever, is gonna try and suck out all my good energy so he can continue to be an asshole, then why wouldn't the demon essentially do the same? I don't know, it makes sense, And I'm not saying that that guy would be a demon, I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying,
yeah.
right?
It's a really interesting kind of parallel that I hadn't thought of before, of that energetic vampires consistently provoke situations in which, there's negative energy perpetuated, and it seems to happen the same way, because these supernatural theorists have found in a lot of these ghost stories a repetitious pattern of, once the person disengages, stops giving it the attention that it wants or needs, the situation tends to calm, where it's not quite as amplified as it was before, and that this is something that particularly happens in houses that have more poltergeist activities. So I guess that's another thing that we haven't really touched on, and I know that we're gonna quickly run out of time, but quickly after an hour and a half, but
But I mean, let's face it, on a subject like this, a day is quickly running out of time.
So then, still under the umbrella of ghosts, though, is poltergeisting, is telekinesis, so things get moved around, and it doesn't seem like there's a very logical explanation in terms of the natural laws as we have agreed upon at this point in time. How does that work? Like if these are demons the only types of spiritual entities that are consistently interacting with humans, or I guess like demons and angels? Like, what's the deal with them moving stuff around? You know, like suddenly a picture will fall off of a bookcase or something, and
Right, with no explanation whatsoever and everything. And,
right,
again, you know, that that makes awesome movies and shit. But it uh yeah, I think it goes back to basically our understanding of the universe is so limited. So it's like, why can't an I mean, because think of it like this, like, okay, if everything presented as how we understand it should be, it, scientifically in the universe, uh, then shouldn't I be seeing all these demons walking around and, the angels and all this kind of stuff? It's like, no, we don't see them, because, and whether it's a different plane, a different dimension, what, however that plays out, like there's so much that we don't see and comprehend and, all this that is around us. And so to me, it's just like, well, yeah, sure, some demon that I can't see could like literally be in my living room and just walk over and flip that shit off the wall. And to me, all I see is a picture flying off the wall,
right.
or some stomps upstairs, and I go, well, there's nobody there, but doesn't mean I didn't hear it. So I totally think, and so I think, but that can just kind of play into the whole expansiveness of everything. It's like, why would a demon, why would, let's just say something with that power only present as one thing? It's way scarier to the entire world if, if we only had, our dead walking around.
Yeah.
Not the Walking Dead, but the dead walking, okay, so, it's spirits, are, the deceased, coming back as spirits. Like, if that was the only kind of supernatural, like, kind of, encounter we had, well, eventually that's not all that scary.
It's the unknown.
But then when you have poltergeist and, all these other, like, that to me get like way scarier, kind of encounters, um, that feeds the fear, so it totally makes sense to me that, if you've got somebody, and let's face it, whether human or non-human, if you've got somebody that's trying to do something like that, to present as multiple things, illogical, because that increases the fear, the misunderstanding, the whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish there. So yeah, to me that totally makes sense that it could still be the same thing, but yeah, just presenting in a different way. That, yeah, maybe seeing a ghost, you're just like, hey, what's up, dude? But a poltergeist in your house is gonna freak you the hell out. So I think why not?
Do you think that demons get bummed out that Hollywood keeps capitalizing on their powerful experiences, thereby forcing them to become more increasingly creative?
I love that question, by the way. And my answer to that would be no. I think that they are probably having a blast because, because let's face it, like most things, uh, most artistic things, let's say, and movies, stories, books, all these things, they're artistic expressions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where does that come from? That comes from experience.
Right.
Now, whether it's your personal experience or the experience of, someone long dead and gone that has left their story, whether written or down through time, verbal, whatever. But I love the podcast, and I can't, fucking Mercury retrograde. I have not gotten to that Belief Hope podcast yet. I can't wait to start jumping in and listening to some of their stuff. But I'm a huge fan of the podcast Lore.
Yeah,
And
I still need to. I need to. We both need to
right.
listen to the podcast. I've just been too scared.
Right. No, I'm
I'm
totally.
just like a big pansy. I
Well,
get afraid to listen to Belief Hope, actually. I have to be like under the right conditions to be. That's how much of a pussy I am. But
she's like, poor Nicole is like down there. I don't want to listen to this podcast. Where's my salt circle and my candles? But okay, so back on point. What I love about that is the history that he provides with these stories, and how you can see it's like one of the more recent ones he was talking about shapeshifters and werewolves, that type of thing and everything. And these stories come, like, if you can trace them back all the way, they will trace back, back to the beginning, essentially. So there's, to me, no reason why, okay, now, for the most part, what is seen like in movies or something, could still be pretty accurate to what, someone has experienced. And if someone has experienced that, something has happened to that, degree or whatever. So, again, whether it's recent or not or whatever, this shit has been happening for a long time, people. So I think that, yeah, not only is it just same old shit, kind of stuff, but having it in such widespread media is, I think, in a sense, playing to the plan, because that just goes into the whole misleading of, okay, we get people to believe in, that your grandma's hanging around, over your head, or, this or that or the other. So, and getting people away from biblical truth. So, and then of course there's that whole other, religion and what really is biblical truth and all that, but that's a whole other thing. So yeah, no, I think that they're just like totally giddy with the whole, movies and media and all this kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, they're just eating that shit up.
Popcorn.
Right, right. It's like, oh, another one's coming out, guys. Come on. Who's got the popcorn? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and yeah, to the fun side, like, it's funny to imagine that and then going, I'd never do that shit. What the hell, like, that's not real. Like, oh, I love it. So yeah. So any more questions with that, or have I answered all of these universal, questions, and everybody's now in the know and knows that I'm right?
Oh yeah, exactly. You've answered all the questions and set us straight. Like,
right. You're welcome.
Ask them again.
No.
No, I feel like we did a good job here. Like, I think we're getting on it. Like,
Yeah.
it was a little good. Well, I mean, I guess that it is time for the wrap up time.
Right.
So no, this was great. I think that we discussed a lot and answered a lot of really provocative questions, with the caveat of knowing that there's always so much more to talk about whenever we're talking about these topics, and that we can't even begin to really get a comprehensive view on it, but I think we had a really good like overview on it. And
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to do takeaways, I know that my takeaway from this conversation really is thinking more in terms of and I think about it for me in terms of a practicing metaphysician of what it really means for me when I'm using psychic abilities to tap into the other side of like, am I just thumbing through a timeline of somebody's life and accessing information, or what, what exactly is really happening when I'm kind of channeling information. So that's something that I'll think about of what it means to access different dimensions and different timelines, because I think that's really useful
Yeah,
line of
especially
thought.
as a practicing metaphysician, and in whatever way you practice, because I'm not, medium or anything like that. But even just as an energy practitioner, I think it's very important to have understandings of these things,
Absolutely.
um, because yeah, again, I get that, well, how can you connect to, my energy if I'm not right next to you and all this, and
Oh,
like,
I
'cause
know that's
everything is energy, kind of thing. And so, yeah, that's a whole nother topic. But I'm just saying, I think it's yeah, I think it's a very good point to have, and to not just have that general understanding, but to break things down like this, like we're doing, and to talk about, okay, well, yeah, what are entities? What are, this, how does that work? All this, so that you have, and this is my thing. This is kind of my bedrock here is knowledge is power,
right.
and yeah, you can live in a little stupid bubble, but then you're just a little stupid person, essentially.
It makes
Whereas,
you vulnerable, I think.
well, right,
That's
well,
how
exactly, it makes you vulnerable to believe anything, and so then, whereas, and I'm not saying that you have to believe what I believe. What I'm
right.
saying is learn,
Be open.
grow, find the information, look at these things and figure it out, figure out what you believe, because without that, you're just believing whatever anybody tells you to believe. And who the fuck knows what they could have just like sat on their couch and said, uh, Earth is flat. Yeah, we'll go with that. I'm going to start telling everybody that. No scientific base, no divine, no, whatever. It's like, no, they just decided that that's what they're going to say or whatever. And then because you don't bother to gain knowledge, you just go, okay, Earth is flat. That's because this dude told me, so naturally it's got to be flat, right? Um, so yeah, that's like the bedrock of everything that I do, personally and in my business is knowledge is power, so if you learn, wake the fuck up and, find this information, and then you can make that informed decision. You don't have to believe what I believe. You don't have to believe what Nicole believes, but you can make that informed decision for yourself. And, yeah, I think my opinion's right, but at least then you have your own opinion, not somebody else's opinion,
Right.
kind of thing. So, what, as we go through these things and what, my beliefs, my opinions, my thoughts and all this kind of, all this comes from my, yeah, getting information from other people, but also doing my own research, and adding that to my gut, and my belief, my spiritual belief. Um, it's not just a one-sided thing. It's like I take all of these things into account, and then, yeah, I might land on basically what this person said, but it's not just because is what this person said, and hey, that sounds good. It's because I've done all of this other stuff to come back to, yeah, I think they're right. Or some version of what maybe this person said or that person said or whatever, but with my variation of based on other things that I have learned or whatever. So I think that's, I guess, maybe my biggest takeaway from this is that learn, put yourself out there, make the effort, to gain knowledge, and because it's never a bad thing. It's just it's just not. What you do with it, now that's a whole nother story. But you know, um, so
I think that's good. That's great. It's like, a mediumship friend of mine was like, we were talking about things similar to this, and like personal belief, self belief, limiting belief, and I had a limiting belief that I needed to let go of, and she was just like, well, who told you you should believe that? Can they be trusted? And you can
right,
kind of apply that line of reasoning to any kind of value, belief, or idea. Like, who told you that? Can they be trusted? Does
right,
it feel right? Are they serving your interest or the interest of the greater good, or are they serving themselves? Like,
right,
just being aware. Like, you and I are just throwing around ideas, mostly to show that we can have a peaceful conversation with conflicting ideas or backgrounds,
right.
uh, and that we're not necessarily drawing to different conclusions at the end of these conversations. It's really about like just being open to the conversation to begin with, and I think
Right, exactly. It's kind of, yeah, starting the conversation, being open to the conversation, and yeah, then having a civil conversation between maybe somewhat opposing views, and I think that's incredibly important. And yeah, it just goes back to this, like, I'm not saying that you got to take what I say here as gold. The point of this is to give you more information. Here's another side of things. Like you said, you hadn't thought of this before. You haven't looked at it like that before. Here's some more information for you to add into your, stack, and sift through it and see, okay, well, does this go with this? Does this go with, yeah, what, first of all, do you trust me at all? And, what, I might say or think or whatever. Um,
that might be a
and
good bonus extra video outside of our cycle of like, what does it mean to find information, establish trust,
mhm,
because that's the hardest part, especially today when there's mis a lot of misinformation or intentionally false information that is put out there. It's like, well, how do you believe anybody? And it's easy to waver between the extremes of being stuck in something that was, like orally passed down or like ingrained in you from an authority figure, or just being lost of like, well, I can't engage or trust in anything because there was one false prophet, therefore they all are, kind of thing. And I
right.
think the sweet spot is somewhere in between of like
I
finding
agree.
who to trust and being confident in yourself, of like not
Right.
being too stuck and not being too lost.
Right. I totally agree. Nothing is perfect. Nobody is perfect. Um, so yeah, whatever side you want to land on, whatever you're always gonna have somebody that's fucked up that side, somebody that's fucked up that side, and all this, and yeah, back to the whole, you know, oral traditions, especially because again, I grew up, in a fairly traditional Christian household, somewhat, Southern Baptist for the most part. Um, so I grew up with Christmas and um, Easter and all these things. And why? Because my parents grew up with it, because their parents grew up with it, because their parents grew up with it. And, And all of this has just been passed down from generation to generation and has become acceptable. Nobody questions this stuff anymore because it's just everybody's always done it, supposedly.
Right.
No. It's, yeah, I'm like, as I've been digging and learning and, using my brain for trying to understand more about things, yeah, like that shit is so far from biblical anything, it's not even funny. Like, but again, as a kid, you're growing up, you celebrate Christmas because that's what you do. Because that's what everybody's always done. Because that's what you're told. So yeah, when I started to question these things, of course, first of all, everybody's like, why are you fucking questioning? Like, just enjoy, but then it's like, but no, it's like this doesn't add up. It's like, what, use your fucking brain, it's like, yeah, when you're wondering, what the hell do eggs and rabbits have to do with the crucifixion? Which, I'm sorry, everybody should be wondering that, But okay, when you finally do, it's like, why wouldn't you then try and figure that out? Like, but again, that's just me. That's the way my brain works, at least. Like, I want to know then, when I start to question that, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, this has to come from somewhere. Like, what, whether it's biblical or not, it's like, it has to come from somewhere. So
you and I both know the history of some of these things, and
right.
when you get to those true origin stories, it gets really gross and really creepy and a whole big dose of what the fuck.
Right. Well, now, and I've understood, Christmas for a while, and I just recently, though, got a little bit more of a detailed explanation of Santa Claus. Like, holy shit, that's disgusting. And I'm like, now all I see now when I see somebody in one of those Santa caps is like this giant fiery pot-bellied furnace where people are just tossing their baby. I'm like, oh my god. It's just like, this is like, that's all I can see now.
Yeah, a lot of European Christmas stories are really, really, really creepy and scary. There's a lot of creepiness.
Well, I mean, let's face it, all of the Christian holidays essentially come from pagan worship,
Yeah.
from way back when. And let's face it, what did the pagans do? They sacrificed. So all of these, why do we dye eggs? Because to celebrate, the goddess Easter, who came, blah 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 blah. Anyway, Easter eggs. They dyed the eggs that she supposedly turned the rabbit into, rabbit thing, whatever. They used to dye eggs in the blood of the child sacrifices. So that's, and I don't know what it is, but there's some like Christian sect or whatever that when they celebrate Easter, they only dye the eggs red. Like, that's the only acceptable color. Why? Because that's the color of blood, because that's the color that the eggs were originally dyed, because that's what, so anyway, that's totally off topic. But yeah, but again, knowledge, people, come on, and again, you don't have to take what either of us say, but just add it to your brain and, find the truth. So.
Well, that wraps up the episode of The Magician's Table. I will, of course, have show notes attached to the video and probably some kind of a something on the website once I get down to it, at least a little blog post of a summary. And I'll definitely include links for any of the things that we have mentioned, if that makes sense. You can watch this video. I mean, you're already watching the video, but you probably found it on YouTube or on our blog. And you can catch Lady Amaran at nature'slorepath.com. Paths.
Yeah, she always misses that S. There's an S at the end there.
Your website, but it doesn't exist.
It's out in a different dimension. It's all right. I function on those higher dimensions, motherfuckers. You can only get me if you're in the fifth.
I'm obviously not there yet.
Nobody's perfect here except for me.
And then my stuff is at Feloria.com.
That one she can get right.
Yeah. If you need assistance with healing or divination services, you know, shout out to us and we can help you. Maybe. We can throw you some information from who knows where and you can take it or not. So
Right. But Nicole will do it sweetly and I will do it with a smack in the face. And see, Nicole's laughing right now because she knows that's yeah. Like, I've been there. Yep, that's pretty accurate.
Well, I think that's it then.
Yep.
And then next time we're talking about angels.
Right. Perfect timing for the pagan holiday that is not in any way associated with Christianity. Christmas. We'll be talking about angels.
Which means we'll probably be talking about Satan.
Right.
Happy holidays, everybody.
I imagine somewhere in there will be some vibrators at some point.
Sex and drugs and Satan and angels.
Right. Like the perfect holiday combination.
That one we'll have to have evening. We'll have to do an evening recording because it'll just be too much fun not to have a beverage.
Right. I know. Right. That totally calls for a glass of wine. Like, yeah, definitely. And we'll be out of Mercury retrograde by then. So, seriously. Thank goodness for that.
Okay. Well, hi.
All right. Everybody, be good. Learn more shit. And yeah, we'll see you next time.